Hello again, I am Jim Bob, and welcome back to another episode of our Snowfall City Skylines playlist. And it looks as though our dock situation is actually working according to plan now. You can see that deliveries are being made into the first dock on the left, and then our exports are going into that one there, and then our imports are coming into the dock on the right. So it does seem to be working the way we wanted it to. Occasionally we do get deliveries going to other ones, but you can see now, look, we have a ship departing from our dock on the left, and we have an import ship coming in on the right. So it does appear as though it just needed a little bit of time to sort itself out. But I think looping them the way we have done has given us that import-export dock system, because the traffic is naturally going to deliver to the first one, which is going to be our export dock, which is the one the ships will leave from. And then because the other dock is closest to the shipping route, that is naturally the one that the importing ships are going to go to first. So because of that, it does appear that we now actually have a proper working import-export dock. I'm really pleased with that. You can see there that the ships are coming in and sort of stacking and waiting to go into the dock on the right, and the ships that are leaving are going from the dock on the left. So everything does seem to have worked itself out the way I was hoping it would do, and that's really encouraging. So nothing else has changed since you were with us. We've still got some kind of issues with workers in this area coming in, and we do have some businesses that keep failing. It's not quite as bad as it was. You can see this one here is just being rebuilt at the same time as me going in and demolishing that one there. So we are still getting a slight shortfall, but the increase in zoning has brought a few more people into our city. You can see we're now sitting just over 34,000 and climbing. And we are being able to provide a few extra workers into this zone. The next step is going to be to put in a sort of a lumber yard over on this side, but given the problems that we're having just filling this section out, and the fact that we still haven't even maxed out some of the space on this side yet, I'm not 100% certain I want to go ahead and do that just yet. We may hang off on that for a little while. Try and get our numbers up a little bit more. We do still have that demand for residential, so I think what we're going to do this episode is we're going to just go ahead and really start upgrading Doa Streepler and start dropping in a lot of high density everywhere. We'll start with working on the residential blocks, and then maybe as time progresses we'll actually start switching some of it out to make some more commercial. Maybe around here this might be a commercial block. Would make sense actually with our sort of statue park area just there, and the fact that we're so close to both a tram and a rail link. It would make sense for that to maybe be commercial rather than residential. But we'll see how it all kind of shakes out. I really want to go ahead and continue this sort of upgrade path that we're on at the moment. Let's just de-zone that completely because it's behind a fire station, so nothing's going to spawn there. And we are going to need to start increasing the quality of some of our services as well. You know, this little fire station is no longer really going to be able to support a large a large sort of high density area like this anymore, so we're going to need to improve that and replace it with a much larger version. So let's do that. Let's find the existing services and replace them with bigger, better versions. So let's plonk in a new fire service just there. Where's our police? Let's do the same with the police. Police is on the opposite side of the road. So again, we're going to demolish that and we're going to put in a brand new police unit. And I think we put the new police unit in just there. And then just take that out completely. We can actually get that zoned as a little bit of high density to match the rest of that block there. There we go. Let's take a look at healthcare. We've got our hospital just there. See, we've got some people here with poor healthcare, and this isn't the fact that they've got a clinic next to them, it's mainly the fact that they're backing on to the industrial sector, so they're just getting polluted all the time. You can see they're kind of living with smog and a railway in their backyard. So I think that would be a good thing to switch to commercial. So let's put some commercial in just there. We'll do the same just there as well. And we can maybe look at putting another hospital in somewhere over here. Let's take a look at our health system again. So we've got clinic and a sauna just over there. We've got a clinic just there. We've got a clinic just there. Clinic just there. See, I like the idea of having clinics supporting the hospitals, so that the hospitals aren't being overstretched. But I do think we need to put in another hospital somewhere, probably around here. So let's look at dropping one of those in. Maybe just here. Or possibly even just here. How far away is that one? I think that works quite nicely just here, actually. So we'll drop that in just there. And then we're going to remove that clinic, because we don't need a clinic and a hospital right next to each other. We'll put a little bit more commercial on the corner, like so. There we go. And now if we take a look at our health happiness, we should start to see a little bit of improvement. It'll certainly help improve the happiness of some of these industry buildings around here as well. Getting a few buildings sort of pinging and leveling up over here, which is good. There's another one there, just leveling up. Let's get back to our zoning. So I'm going to make this commercial as well. We talked about making those potentially commercial. Let's make this a nice little residential block along here. And then same again on this side of the road. And the quick and easy way I'm doing this is I'm just pressing square to dezone and then X to rezone, and this time making sure it's high density. So it's just square X, and it just dezones what's there and rezones it with what you're clicking on. And you don't even need to demolish the buildings. They will just, because they're low density buildings in a high density zone, they automatically despawn. It's the same as if you were to change from residential to commercial. You just do a square X dezone rezone, and anything that's there that is the wrong type is immediately sort of flattened and rebuilt. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to clear, but usually it happens pretty quickly. Just fill in some of those weird missing bits. There we go. So we've got a nice little bit of high density going up just there as well. And that's kind of polished off our the main part of our demand. You can see we do have a little bit. We are going to get some new buildings coming up in its place all the way through here. Pretty dark at the moment. We should start to see some buildings popping up in these sections very, very quickly. We're up to 35,000 people now. So again, kind of a balancing act with our population. You can see a lot of buildings here starting to ping and level up. These are our new commercial buildings that we plopped in a moment ago. These obviously leveling up based on the services in the area, so the healthcare, these decorations which will improve happiness. You know, we're not too far from our upgraded police and fire services just here as well, which is also going to help. You can see it's also having a bigger impact on these residential buildings just here. So sometimes just upgrading your facilities to a larger version can make a huge difference. We've seen that already all throughout this series, where just dropping in a couple of placeables or upgrading a service has had a massive positive impact on the area and caused a huge chain of upgrading buildings and population booms. So I have been asked if I can spend a little bit more time kind of looking through some of the information tabs over here. So we're going to have a look at the info views this time out. So you can see with our power here, we are currently producing a whopping 1,122 megawatts of power, and we only need around 440. So we are massively having a surplus of power. But don't let this thing fool you, because it can sometimes be a bit misleading. Now, our power is a true power rating, is a true surplus, because everything we have is all connected. So you can see over here, this is the one place where it might be stagnated. We're generating a huge amount of power, mainly because of this new nuclear power plant. But that's connected to this section here, which is connected to our docks, which is connected to the industry, which is connected to our main city grid. And then everything in our city, you can see, is connected. We still even have some unnecessary power cables that we could perhaps go ahead and remove that are no longer needed. We don't need these cables just here. We don't need these cables along here, because they're all part of one big grid. We don't need those cables there, because we have a little mini connection just there as well. And then over here, this is all connected, and then from here you can see that this all runs out this way. That connection we do need. Obviously we have nothing nearby to our rail hub, so we've got nothing to connect that. But everything else over here, as you can see, is completely connected. So there's a lot of unnecessary power lines that we just don't need anymore. Let's go ahead and actually get rid of those. And then we'll do it in power to make it easier to see. So we don't need this connection anymore. And we don't need these anymore. And we're not getting anything back for destroying these, but we are kind of just tidying up the view a little bit. Getting rid of those ugly power lines that are completely unnecessary. I mean, the ones that we do need, we have to keep, but the ones that are unnecessary, it's not always nice to go back in afterwards and just get rid of them, because they do make it look a lot nicer when you don't have a mass of unnecessary power cables everywhere. But as I was saying, our surplus is a true surplus. You can see consumption's gone up because the temperature has dropped and our heating plants are working harder. It's a true surplus because everything is connected, but you can get yourself in a situation where you have a massive amount of power, but you don't have enough for your whole city. So if I were to take this piece out, for example, now we still have a massive power surplus, but it may, and it has, caused problems over here. So even though we have a huge power production number against consumption number, a lot of that power that's being produced isn't connected to our city grid. So it's now causing these huge rolling brownouts, as you can see. So we need to make sure that even if we have a large surplus, you need to make sure that everything is connected. Otherwise you will end up with parts of your city struggling for power, even though it says you have a massive surplus. And it's not just that, it's the same with water as well. So everything that we have is all connected, but we could quite easily take out part of this piping that runs under the water and feeds this area. And then these water in pipes and these sewage out pipes would only be servicing this part of our city. And this section here would have no service whatsoever. So again, it's exactly the same with power lines. You could be having a massive surplus of water, but if not everything's connected to that water that you have coming in, it makes absolutely no difference how much extra water you're producing, or how much extra sewage handling you can manage. If you're not bringing that water in, and you're not connecting your sewage management everywhere, it doesn't make a bit of difference. You're going to end up exactly the same as you were with your power situation, where you're just not able to cope. So you can see we're a little on sort of like the borderline here, a little bit sort of on the razor's edge of sewage treatment. So we're going to drop another plant in just to make sure that as the city continues to grow, that doesn't then drop into the yellow and become a bit of a problem. And there we go, a nice big jump on our sewage treatment. We could possibly get away with putting in an extra one of these water pumps. In fact, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Just, again, to give us that little bit of a safety net, so that as our city continues to expand, as we zone in these new areas, or upgrade the zones on our city, we're not leaving ourselves in a situation where we're not producing enough water to cope with the increase. There we go. Let's see, what else can we look at on the info views? You can also look at your trash situation. Now, this is a little hard to kind of tell, but if you look at these, you can see kind of areas that are not getting great coverage. So the darker the areas, sometimes the areas that are producing a little bit more trash than others. There also might be areas that are just not getting good trash coverage, and these will be the places like over here where you can see where we now have a lot more demand for trash service over here, but we haven't improved our trash collection service that much over here. Yeah, we did for a moment have a temporary road bridge which connected up over here, which would have meant that these incinerator plants would have been able to quickly get across the river and deal with these areas quite quickly. But without that connection, they're now having to come all the way along the freeway and all the way in here. So we still have just these two incinerator plants over here dealing with all this increase in extra people. And even though our incineration status says it's okay, this is more about where they are placed rather than your potential. So we've got 4 incinerators over here, and this area is really comfortably covered. There's a couple of areas that are a little bit maybe waiting a little longer than they could necessarily do, but they're generally fine. But over here we are now in a problem. You can see we're getting demands and trash building up because we only have 2 plants over here that are able to produce vehicles in this area pretty quickly. So we are going to have to look at, even though our incineration status is fine, we're going to have to add additional facilities over here simply to deal with the volume in this part of the map. So we'll come back to that later. Happiness. I've never been able to master the commercial happiness. I'm not entirely sure why. There is a trophy for getting above 90, maybe 95% happiness for, I think, a couple of years in your city, and I've never been able to do it because I've never been able to keep my commercial happiness high enough. I've been able to boost everything else, but for whatever reason my commercial happiness has always been a bit iffy. Again, not 100% certain how I can improve that. And you get random houses that are just miserable as miserable as anything as well. Like a grumpy old man lives in that place there and just refuses to be happy. You can see we do have some buildings that kind of flirt with miserableness and then pick up again. Generally, a good way to improve your happiness, I've found, is to put down landmarks and put down decorations as well. Maybe even some monuments once you unlock those as well. They have a big impact on happiness. And also making sure that you have good services going in the area. So good travel services to get people moving around into those areas. So maybe we could look at increasing our traffic flow into that section there. Maybe that would help us boost our commercial a little bit more. Healthcare, again, it's not just a question of how good your facilities are, but it's where they're spaced as well and how much coverage they get. You can see down here we don't have the greatest of coverage down here because it is quite a distance to what is effectively just a couple of very small health buildings, a clinic and a spa. So while this area is happy as a pig in muck, this area is a little bit sparse on some of its coverage, and you can see it starts to have an effect towards the edge of that boundary where some citizens aren't getting the healthcare that they could possibly do with. So maybe we need to drop another little clinic in over here. If we look at levels, this simply just shows you how upgraded your buildings are. So you can see the different shades from your offices. Offices have 3 levels, as does industry and commercial. They have 3 different levels of happiness, or what they're upgraded to. Most of our offices are level 2. Over here, you can see we have level 3 offices. Now, these are the offices that have access to good services. So these have a lot of healthcare and good travel links and decorations and so on and so forth. These are the buildings that are doing better than others. Same with our residential. Again, we've got good access to healthcare and police and fire and garbage and all that jazz over here. So these are really, really strong. As we move around here, you can see some of these not getting the service that they need, so they're not quite at the full level. They're at level 4 as opposed to level 5. Over here, this is all pretty strong. And then over here, this is where you can see it starts to fall down a little bit. So these buildings are quite new, and they are upgrading. So you can see that some of them are still being rebuilt. So I'm not too worried about this area over here. These will level up over time, but we can always tweak things a little bit as well. And then same with our commercial. You can see we have some really strong commercial over here. We don't have that much weak commercial. Here's a little bit here that's not at its best. But again, I think that's a relatively new block of commercial, and some of that may improve just over time. And then with our industry, you can see this stuff, not the greatest. This stuff much, much better. And that's because we have transport networks and healthcare and so on and so forth over here. So we could do with boosting this section of our industry a little bit. And it's the same over here. You can see the difference between happy buildings and unhappy buildings. Most of this is going to be pretty strong because, again, we have good links over here. We've got health, fire, police, transport links, and we also have good access to rail to our ship freight as well. So everything's pretty happy over here. Traffic, well, you've seen me use traffic an awful lot in the past. This is just a great way to identify your busy hotspots. Really, really bad over here, and this is mainly because of the trams and the fact that we've just upgraded these buildings to high density as well. It's definitely having a knock-on effect. But you can see here, look, the trams are definitely causing some congestion around here, so we may potentially need to look at rerouting our tram network ever so slightly. It could definitely be better. And it's the same over here as well. Wherever the trams are and we have busy junctions, the two just do not mix. This is definitely proving to be a problem now. This was when we looked at maybe having a single way into the city, which would then continue onto the freeway. It's now proving to be a bad idea. You can see we've got a lot of stuff that wants to just carry on and go straight on, and we can eliminate some of the queuing here simply by reconnecting this back up. So this junction is definitely going to need a reworking. The idea was an interesting one, but it failed. So we are going to have to look at that. Pollution, well, pollution is always going to be, the main areas is going to be your industry. You can see how bad it is just there and how bad it is just over there. But everywhere else is pretty clean. I mean, we've got a little bit of pollution over here thanks to our sewage treatment, but it's not too bad. And then again, you can see our polluting areas. It doesn't really tell you much, this tab here. I mean, it's more in case you have a problem with your water, but as long as you keep your input, so your intake and your output separated from each other and downstream from your input, from your intake, then you should be fine with your water supplies. Fire safety, you can see which areas are most at risk. Naturally, places like your industry are going to be particularly bad, especially places like lumber mills. But you can see over here, look how bad our fire coverage is over here. We are definitely going to need to add in more fire services to be able to protect this section of our city, because it's really going to struggle. So we only have a 28% rating when it could be better. And it will be the same with police as well. You'll see which areas are very well protected and which areas are not so protected. And again, it might look straightforward if you've got plenty of small buildings around, but again, if you've only got small buildings around and you have a huge density of people in the area, then small buildings just may not be enough. Transport, well, we've all looked at the transport tab plenty of times. That doesn't need to be explained. Noise pollution is a good way to also keep an eye on potential problems with your land value and your citizen happiness. If there's too much noise, it can have a negative impact. And obviously high traffic areas are going to be very, very noisy. Industry areas are always going to be very noisy as well. And again, you can see here, this is high density mixed with heavy traffic and also trams. It's also all having a knock-on effect. Our wind turbines here are also generating a lot of noise. Luckily, we don't have much that's really going to be affected by that, but again, it's something that you might want to pay attention to if you're trying to raise your land value, is keep an eye on your noise pollution levels. Outside connections, this kind of gives you a good overview as to exactly what you're looking at, so you can see which buildings are importing and the products that they are importing. So you can see here that we've got a few buildings down here that are importing oil. These are these dark purple buildings. We've got a few buildings importing forestry products, quite a few importing agricultural products, and then we also have some that are importing ore. Not many buildings that are importing goods, but we do have some commercial buildings that do obviously need goods. Now, why these are being imported and not taken from our goods, maybe we're just not producing enough goods to be able to meet the supply, or supply enough of the demand. Maybe that's why they're having to import, but there's not that much when you consider just how much commercial is in this section. Only a couple of buildings are actually importing things, because most of it is coming from us, which is good. Same with export. You can see the buildings that are doing export. So these buildings here in our industry are exporting goods. These will probably be exporting them to our rail terminal and sending the trains off over there. This part of our industry is also exporting some goods. Again, you get to see a little bit of a breakdown as to what is being exported. It's almost entirely just goods as opposed to forestry products. I don't think we've got anything. It says we have something, but I don't see anything that is actually exporting forestry. And then same again, some of this is actually being used as export. Most of our industry is actually just meeting our own demand. And then you have tourism as well, so you have areas that can be touristy areas, and you can see tourists on your map. They're the pink cars. So we've got some people coming into our industrial sector just to visit this. I don't know why. And then you can see areas around here that have good tourism as well. Obviously this is a nice little tourist landmark, and you see we've got a few tourists outside of our regular citizens. Our regular citizens are the guys in white, the tourists are the guys in purple, usually the ones carrying the suitcases on wheels as well. And then you can also get a breakdown as to what kind of wealth they have. Obviously if you're wanting to make money off tourism, then the wealthier the better, but you need to make sure you have good tourism zoning, and we've done hardly any zoning at all this time around, so maybe we need to look into that a bit more in the future. Land value, this is quite a key one here. Buildings will not be able to level up if they don't have a good land value. They will kind of stagnate a little bit. So by having these really nice land value areas, it means that these buildings are very, very likely to boost themselves and level up. And you can see just how good our land value is here in Dover Streepler now that we've got improved services, even upgrading to high density, which can sometimes have a knock-on effect on our land value. You can still, it's still holding very, very strong all the way through here. And then we've even got some good land value here with our tram network. These buildings right here are getting great land value because they've got great service, and they've also obviously got the ice little arena just next to it as well. If we zoom out a little bit, this area not quite so good, but not bad. And then we have really good land value just here. And then another little patch or two dotted around, and then obviously this is quite a strong area as well. So land value definitely important. Lots and lots of different things can impact your land value: pollution, noise pollution, bad transport links, lack of services, lack of decorations, such as landmarks and parks and things like that. They all have a detrimental effect on land value, and if a land value gets too low for a building that's there, if it's an upgraded building and the land value starts to fall, that building will eventually just shut up shop and disappear. And so people will lose jobs, people's homes will close, and they'll have to find somewhere else to live, so on and so forth. It can have a big impact. So do make sure you keep an eye on your land value from time to time. Natural resources just kind of shows you where on your land the resources are. So again, we've looked at this before, but you can see we're actually sitting on a huge amount of oil over here. I hadn't even thought about looking for oil, and we've got a huge amount here, which would be quite useful if our industry was in the right place. So maybe we could look at tapping into some of this in the future, exhausting the area of its oil. I don't really want to rip up all that residential stuff, though, to get at the oil. We do have other places that we could potentially look at as well. They've got some oil over there. A little bit of oil just there behind us. We've got plenty of farmland here in the centre. I have been wondering what to fill this with, and maybe we could do a little bit of agricultural farmland coming off this part of our connection just here. We could even create this into a farm, but I don't think it's really a good location for it, considering what's around the area. This is farm area as well, although not quite as strong. And then over here, you can see we've got quite a nice little bit of forestry zoning over here. But you can actually kind of create your own forestry as well by dropping a ton of trees into an area. You can help boost a forestry a little bit. But this is a really strong forestry area, so I think we might put some logging into this section just here. Specialise this industry a little bit. Leisure, parks and plazas, just kind of shows you where they are and how active they are. This is all our parks and plazas, and then these are our unique buildings. We do have a few of them dotted around. Then zones, again, we only have the one zone at the moment, Doa Streepler. Well, two. I forgot we've got Madison Hills over there as well. We need to really get on with doing some more zoning. Heating is a new one. This kind of just shows you an overview of your heating, but you can see all this when you're actually placing the heat pipes anyway, so it's not really a major issue. Road maintenance, this is definitely a new one as well. This gives you a good idea as to the coverage of your road maintenance buildings. You can see we've got excellent coverage because we've got them dotted all over the place. And then this shows you the condition of the roads, from how normal roads are, and then the boosted roads. So these areas here where the traffic is quite bad, it's awkward to get these things in here, but you can see, look, immediately just going through there, it just boosts the road condition a little bit, and that does help to make traffic flow just a little bit quicker. So having good coverage is definitely something you want to think about. And then you've got your snow as well. So again, you can see your coverage with your snow dumps. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dotted all around our map. And again, you can see if any of the roads have heavy snow. I mean, the weather's absolutely fine at the moment. There's no snow. It's nice and sunny. We don't have any snow on the roads that we need to worry about whatsoever. And that's pretty much it. That's the info views. There's a whole wealth of information that you can get on your city purely just by looking at those tabs. And I do recommend that you kind of refer to them on a fairly regular basis, because they can really help you out when you're trying to figure out what you want to do next with your city and how you want to plan it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to zone in some industry over here, but I'm also going to create, we were talking about this a second ago, I'm actually going to paint in a little bit of a new district over here. So I'm going to go to a small tool for control, and I'm going to zone this block in just here, like so, and everything in there we're going to specialise as forestry, like that. There we go. So these buildings will now disappear again and start to pop up as forestry. I'm not sure how well they're going to do, actually, alongside a polluty, smelly area like this. Maybe it may have a detrimental effect on the trees. Maybe they'll help cancel each other out. I haven't tried running regular industry and forestry right next to each other before. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. But I'm hoping that'll help with some exporting and importing these as well. Huge amount of traffic coming out of there, look. Look how much is coming out of the recent deliveries that we've just had. And our road network over here seems to be holding up, although this is getting a little bit busy. This exit road over here, I mean, that's to be expected. Not a huge amount we can do about that with the road network system that we have. The only thing we could do is maybe make that a double road going in. That might be a little bit better, actually. Let's try doing that before too much starts getting built. Let's upgrade this piece of road to 2-lane traffic, and what we'll do as well is we'll change direction on this piece of road, like so. And then maybe that will encourage some traffic to come back out through here. And if we're splitting where some of that traffic's coming from, it might free up the flow a little bit. If it splits it over a couple of different areas, which is what it seems to be doing, it might just aid flow quite nicely. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Now, we did say that we needed more fire over here as well, didn't we? We didn't have particularly good fire coverage, so let's look at dropping in a large fire station. And I think this block here is going to be a pretty good place for us to do that. We'll do it with both fire and police. We'll drop one either side of the junction, like so. And you can hear straight away, look at all those pings and upgrades. If we go back to our info view and go to fire coverage, look how much better that is now. And if we look at happiness, look at all those buildings just pinging like crazy. All that extra, all those extra people being born in those houses. Huge wave of redevelopment going on, and this is what I was saying just a moment ago. You're just one simple little thing can have a huge effect, positive effect on your city. Just changing a service, making it a little bit better, adding in a little bit of decoration, it can just make all the world of difference and trigger a huge wave of upgrades and population growth. I mean, look at our population now. We're up to 41,500, and this is going to help as well. All these people being born into this area, new people either moving in or just, you know, kids being born, or combination of the pair, having a big boost on our population. We're really closing in quite rapidly on getting airports. That was something else I was thinking about, was dropping an airport in here. So I want to wait until we unlock the airport, get that placed, and then we're going to look at maybe putting in some farmland in the gap between it. But so far, everything seems to be shaking out really nicely. Still getting more buildings pinging and leveling up over here, which is great. And look at this now, we have that great coverage everywhere around here. And same with our police coverage. I've got really strong police coverage in this area now. I'm going to go and deal with this graveyard. There we go. And how close are we on the milestones now? We need just over 6,000 people. So definitely a big boost for us there. Taking a quick little overpass of some of these new buildings that are spawning in this area. You definitely see a lot bigger houses in this area now. Yeah, that has made a huge difference. I wonder if that's had a good impact on our land value as well. Well, it hasn't helped. It hasn't hurt, has it? It's actually made this patch bigger. Before it was kind of just this part here, but now we've added this section into that as well. So it's definitely improved our land values having those services there. Let's take a look at our death care. It's not too bad, is it? I think I'm pretty happy with our death care. A little bit iffy on police over here. Again, we are putting a lot of pressure on our police. I mean, we do have a new facility just there. I think the time has come for us to add a prison as well. You can see we're running only about 100 detained criminals at a time at the moment, but I think we're getting ready, and we'd need to sort out our trash problem over here as well. That was the other thing I knew I'd forgotten that we needed to do. So where can we do that without having a detrimental effect on happiness and land value? Possibly over here. We don't need... It's going to affect those commercial buildings slightly, but we don't need those cables there anymore either. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot I can do about that. We are kind of limited for space. So that's just going to go there for now. Eventually we will try and work our way around that, but I'm looking to see if I can maybe drop in something to counteract that little negativity that we've just dropped in there. Maybe a good building of some kind would help. There isn't really a lot there we can drop in. Let's take a look at some of our monuments and landmarks. Spa Hotel and the Christmas tree we already have dropped in. We haven't got any of these original ones in yet. We could maybe look at dropping in a Grand Central Terminal. If we want to find out a bit more, we can just press R3 and it gives us a nice little heads up boost of information about it. And I think this would actually be a good building to place over by our big rail hub. I mean, we've got all those railway lines over here. This would be the perfect place for it, somewhere over here. So how about we find an area over here that we can maybe squeeze it in. I think what I might need to do is just rework the railway line a little bit, give us a little bit more space. Because I'm not really seeing much room to plonk this down. Or what we could do is we could move... that's quite big as well, actually. It's bigger than I thought. Or would this fit somewhere over here? Not really. Maybe it's the road that we need to change to give us a little bit more room. Yeah, let's do that. Let's change the road. Let's get the right road selected. There we go. So I need to pause for a second and remove this road like this. I'm going to draw in some more road. Oh, that's too lame. I don't want that. That's the one I wanted. Drawing a nice piece here. Again, I'm doing it like this to prevent parking outside the station. Now we're going to switch to regular road. Just drive that straight across like that. And bring that down. Like so. And then we'll put a little bit of a kink on the road. Okay. Now if we can maybe get our building in just here. It's still just a fraction too big, look. Alright, so we need to take that out and we need to extend our road just a little bit more. Kind of really pushed for space. We just about get away with it there, I think. It's a little bit too close. Let's take the road back a touch. And then instead of pushing it all the way up like that, we can actually drop it back just a fraction more. There we go, that looks nicer. And that should now fit. Just fits. Look at that. Beautiful. Now we have our rail museum right next to our huge rail hub with, 3 stations and 7 or so trains all feeding into that area. We maybe even have a bit of space for something opposite as well. Igloo Hotel, what do we need for that? We need to build the Snow Castle restaurant. So where is the Snow Castle restaurant? There it is. What do we need for this? 200,000 units of snow covering the roads. Ah! That we can do. We can work towards that. all we need to do is we need to go into our current snow dumps and just turn them off. And then wait for it to start snowing. So let's turn that one off. Let's turn that one off. And turn that one off. Because we have plenty of road. It shouldn't take us too long to unlock this one at all. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, that's all 9 of them. There we go. Yeah, we just need to wait now for it to start snowing again. Let 200,000 litres of snow, or units of snow, appear on our roads, and then turn those back on once we've unlocked the hotel. Beautiful. We can get that done, and then we can start looking at something else as well. But that will help our happiness and our land value, having that just there. Well, it'll help our happiness more than it'll help our land value, but definitely much, much happier people here now. Because, again, we have a nice little building here. And also help bring some more tourists in as well. A little bit of crime going on in the offices, dealt with pretty quickly. And here you can see we've got this little... You might not have seen this, actually. I can't remember if I showed you this or not. We've got this tram network that just runs through this section here. And then we've got a little turning loop here. And then we've got a nice little bit for people to cross the road so they don't keep climbing over the tracks to get to the station. And then we've got a nice little bit, obviously, that feeds into our station area over here as well. Nice, busy pedestrian walkways going on through there. All linking to those little side roads. And, of course, linking to our little ice skating arena over there as well. So all we need to do now really is just kind of let things play out a little bit and continue to expand. I'm going to end the episode just here, keeping an eye on our ship terminals, waiting for it to snow, and I will catch you back with another episode of our City Skylines Snowfall playlist very soon.